Imagine moving into what you think will be the quiet sanctuary of your dreams only to discover that your biggest battle won't be with the land itself but with the woman who thinks she rules everything in sight. And before I tell you what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button because this story is the kind of jaw-dropping chaos you don't want to miss. And trust me, you'll want more of these real-life drama stories, because what started as me simply buying a piece of property turned into a war with an HOA Karen that escalated so far it dragged in the sheriff himself as my new neighbor. And everything from late-night confrontations to bizarre legal threats to a twist that had the entire town whispering in shock became my reality. So let's start from the beginning when I saw a little patch of land right next to an HOA community that looked neat, polished, and frankly suffocating with their little rules about what color mailboxes had to be, how tall grass could grow, and even whether you could park a pickup truck in your own driveway. And I thought to myself, why in the world would I ever live under that kind of dictatorship? So I was thrilled when I found out that this piece of land technically wasn't under the HOA's jurisdiction. It was right outside their boundary lines but close enough that I would share a street entrance. And that's where the nightmare began, because the self-appointed queen bee of the HOA, who I'll just call Karen because, well, she earned it, absolutely lost her mind the moment she realized someone had bought that land and it wasn't under her control. She stormed over the first day I showed up with a surveyor, waving papers in the air and yelling, "You can't build here, this is HOA property." And when I calmly explained the county zoning maps and how it was exempt, she went red in the face and muttered about how she was going to put a stop to this nonsense. And at first I laughed it off thinking she was just bluffing. But oh no, Karen took it as a personal mission to make my life hell, filing complaints with the county about imaginary violations, calling inspectors to check if I had permits, even trying to block my construction trucks from entering the road by parking her SUV sideways. And the other HOA members, some embarrassed and others secretly enjoying the show, just watched the feud grow hotter. And here's where it gets interesting because one of those inspectors she kept calling happened to be a cousin of the county sheriff. And word started to spread in town about how this HOA Karen was harassing a guy who had every legal right to do what he wanted with his land. So by the time my foundation was poured, I had already collected a stack of bogus citations that went nowhere, a dozen angry emails from Karen about aesthetic standards, and more than a few middle-of-the-night encounters where she'd shine a flashlight into my property as if she was patrolling a prison yard. And the final straw came when she trespassed onto my land one morning screaming that she was going to build a fence across the property line because the HOA voted on it, and I had to remind her again that the HOA had no jurisdiction. And when she refused to leave, I called the sheriff's office, and that's when fate delivered the twist of all twists because the sheriff himself showed up, not a deputy, not an assistant, but the actual sheriff who happened to be looking for a quieter place to live since his job was stressful enough. And after looking at the situation, listening to both sides, and reviewing the property maps, he not only told Karen to leave me alone but also confided to me that he was in the process of buying land nearby. And guess which lot it turned out to be? That's right, the one directly across from mine, meaning Karen's worst nightmare wasn't just that she couldn't control me, but now the county sheriff himself was moving in right next door to her pristine HOA. And you would think that might calm her down, but no. She doubled down, accusing me of bribing the sheriff, of forging documents, and even tried to sue both of us claiming that my property devalued hers, which the judge threw out so fast it probably gave her whiplash. And while all this was happening, I was building not just a house but a little dream escape with a big porch, a garden, and yes, the very pickup truck she hated most parked proudly in the driveway, while the sheriff, amused by the whole feud, built a cabin with a flagpole flying high. And every day Karen would glare out her window as the two of us waved, sometimes inviting the other neighbors who were secretly tired of her antics over for barbecue. And slowly the neighborhood dynamic shifted because people started realizing that the HOA's power wasn't as absolute as Karen made it seem. Some even questioned why they paid dues for rules they hated, and whispers of rebellion against her leadership spread, which only made her more frantic, to the point where she started walking door to door demanding loyalty pledges. But by then her grip had slipped. And the sheriff being right there meant people finally had the courage to stand up to her. And here's the real kicker. Turns out the HOA board had grown so tired of her that when re-elections came around, she lost her spot as president in a landslide, and though she tried to cling on, even filing another lawsuit claiming election fraud, it was over. And the final twist came a few months later when her house went up for sale, but not before she left one last nasty note in everyone's mailbox about how the neighborhood was ruined, though by then no one cared because peace had finally returned. And as for me, I ended up with not only the home I wanted but also a great friendship with the sheriff, who turned out to be the best neighbor anyone could ask for. And every time I sit on my porch watching the sunset, I can't help but think back to how HOA Karen tried everything in her power to control me but only ended up losing everything she thought she ruled, proving once and for all that sometimes standing your ground against the loudest bully brings not only freedom but also a victory so sweet it becomes the kind of story people beg you to tell again. And if you enjoyed this wild ride of HOA drama, neighbor feuds, and sweet justice served with a smile, don't forget to subscribe because there are so many more unbelievable true stories waiting to be told. Stories that will make you laugh, gasp, and shake your head in disbelief, just like this one.